I recently started asking myself what it might have been like if I was in high school now. Like if I was experiencing COVID-19 in high school and lockdowns, all the stuff that you're going through. I thought this might help me better understand you and maybe be able to communicate better with you um, about this experience. This process was interesting. It took me down deep into my memories and back to my first memory of being a student. I must have been in grade two, about 7 years old at the time. I'm sitting at my desk in school. The teacher is teaching, and I am driving a car. I have made my desk into an imaginary car. I remember this well. The like metal legs on the desk would come down and they'd like split at the bottom, and I'd use one as an accelerator and one as a brake, and my pencil case was like a shifter. And I must have looked completely ridiculous to anyone who was watching me. But that's how I would spend my time in class while the teacher was teaching. And I remember thinking, even as a little kid, oh no, I better start to pay attention to what's going on here because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I would stop driving and I would try and start listening to the teacher. And of course, I didn't understand what was going on because there was a whole world of learning that took place while I was driving on the highway. And it looked to me like everyone else in class understood what was going on. And so I would try, but I would feel overwhelmed, right? And I would feel like I'm so far behind and I don't really know what's going on. And eventually I would just slip back into my driving desk. I eventually stopped imagining that my desk was a car, probably embarrassingly late. Um, but but my experience in school didn't change all that much. I definitely connected with some teachers and some classes along the way, but really through elementary school and high school, much of my time in classes was marked in my memory by this struggle between me being inside my own head, not paying attention to what was going on in school, and then trying to get back into things and figure out what was going on, but feeling like I was so overwhelmed and so far behind and I couldn't understand and I couldn't catch up. And I basically muddled my way through school with really poor marks and some failing marks, and it was a struggle. I developed two narratives about myself out of this experience that were both very unhealthy, but were both very impactful on my life. The first narrative was that I don't try hard enough. That's how I kind of looked at this experience. Like, I could listen, but I'm too lazy or not interested or distracted. And so I just don't try hard enough. And that would lead to me thinking school, I hate school, right? That's why I don't try, because I don't want to try for something that I hate doing. And everything outside of school I love, and everything in school is terrible and I hate it. So I'm just not going to try. And that's why I don't do well, because I don't try hard enough. That was narrative number one. The second unhealthy narrative that I developed was that it was everyone else's fault that this was happening, right? That the teachers were not interesting enough, the school was not structured well enough, nothing was inspiring for me. All these other factors outside of me were contributing to me not doing what I was meant to do. These narratives were so strong in my life that well into adulthood, I probably even to this day on this point, I obsess over trying, over working hard and pushing myself and not ever perceiving myself as not trying hard enough. And when I first started teaching, my entire goal as a teacher was to be interesting and engaging and fun and funny with students, because all I wanted to do was correct for all those teachers in my life that I saw as boring and uninteresting and not fun, right? And there was a moment in my life where all of this sort of shifted. One of the administrators, when I first started teaching at the school that I taught at in New York, asked me the following question. He said, Hillel, I see that you're popular. I see that students like you. But can you describe to me what you're doing to make sure that your students are learning? What are you doing to make sure that they can access the knowledge that you're trying to present them with, and that they can develop the skills to work with that knowledge and to become independent learners once they're done with your class? And I couldn't answer that question because I wasn't at all focused on learning. And then it kind of hit me, right? Like, I can't answer that question for my whole life. because I didn't spend enough time reflecting on my own learning and how I learn. Now, where I think this connects to the moment that we're in is I think a lot of students struggle with learning. In fact, I don't just think that, I know that, right? Because we actually measure learning on a pretty regular basis in school, right? And when you think about it, of all the students in B'nai Akiva schools, how many students can you say are perfect students, master everything that they set out to learn? It's a minority of the students. Most of us, right, don't succeed, at least not fully, at all of our learning. And yet that's what we spend most of our day doing. And so I think a lot of students, to a greater or lesser extent, fall into the category or fall into some experience like I had in school, which is when the learning gets tough, distractions abound, right? It's really like you want to distract yourself. So hopefully you're not driving imaginary cars, but you might, as soon as you walk out of a class you had trouble understanding, you kind of get distracted with your friends. You start planning what you're going to do Saturday night. You think about this activity that you're leading or this team that you're on or all these other things that being in school allows you to distract yourself from. Now we're in a reality where all that stuff goes away. And all you're left with is the learning, right? To add insult to injury, all of a sudden a good chunk of that learning is self-paced learning, right? Because who can sit on Zoom for 10 hours a day, right? So there's got to be some asynchronous learning in there. And now all of this learning is just sitting with us. And there's very little distraction. And so it's almost like we're constantly confronted with this big, overwhelming list of things that we find difficult to understand, that we feel like we need to catch up on, like we feel like we're so far behind on. And that can be a really heavy burden to bear. So I'm really glad I'm not in high school now. I think it would have been really challenging for me. But going through this trip in my memory leads me to offer two pieces of guidance that I hope will help. First, don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself for what you haven't succeeded at in the past. Second, don't judge everyone else. Don't judge the school and your teachers and all of that stuff. It doesn't matter if you think the judgment is correct or incorrect. It doesn't lead to anywhere productive. What does lead to being productive is just trying to do things one at a time. Set one learning goal. I am going to work on this assignment, work on this piece of knowledge from the assignment. If I don't understand it, I'm going to ask for help and I'm going to get that done. And when I'm done with that, I'll look at my stuff and I'll take the next goal out and I'll try and accomplish that goal. Just focus on what is in front of you and what you can do, and try and let go of the self-judgment and of the outward judgment as much as you can, because they won't lead anywhere productive. Now, this is not going to be easy for many of you. It wouldn't have been easy for me when I was in high school. But I will say this, which I can only share from experience. There's a well-known researcher named Brené Brown who researches success and happiness and vulnerability. And she has a great quote where she says, all of her research has taught her that a person's ability to be wholehearted, right, healthy, can never be greater than their ability to be brokenhearted, unhealthy. Meaning, when we struggle through things, that the depth of our struggle actually creates the height of our success. And if we don't have to struggle, we're going to have a limit to who we can be on the upside. But when we do have to struggle, the upside only becomes that much greater. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.